Welcome to the Big Four Accounting Firms podcast, brought to you by big4accountingfirms.com and the Big Four Accounting Firms YouTube channel. Make sure to check out our website and subscribe to our YouTube channel. In today's podcast, I wanted to give an update of the world's top 10 accounting firms. And again, this is the top 10 accounting firms in the world, not by any country. So the first accounting firm we're going to talk about is Baker Tilly, and they come in at number 10. And Baker Tilly has about $3.4 billion in revenue for the last available financial year. And they also have about 30,000 employees globally. Now, the ninth largest accounting firm in the world is Nexia International. And Nexia International made about $4.3 billion in their latest fiscal year. And they also had about 25,000 employees globally. And that's the ninth largest accounting firm in the world. And the eighth largest accounting firm in the world is Crowe. And Crowe made about $4.3 billion globally in their latest fiscal year, and they have 42,000 employees globally. And number 7 on the largest accounting firms in the world is RSM. And RSM made about $5.37 billion globally in their latest fiscal year, and they had 43,000 employees. Moving on to number 6, the 6th largest accounting firm in the world, and they are Grant Thornton. And Grant Thornton made about $5.45 billion in their latest fiscal year, and they had 53,000 employees. And what's important is that Grant Thornton recently passed up RSM. RSM used to be ahead of Grant Thornton, and you can see their revenues are pretty close. RSM had $5.37 billion, and Grant Thornton had $5.45 billion. So it'll be interesting to see which accounting firm stays ahead. Most likely it'll be Grant Thornton because they have more employees. And as we know about the accounting firms, the more employees you have, the more billable hours you can have and the more revenue that equals. Unless you're just not providing value and then your billable hour, you might not be able to charge as much for your billable hour. The 5th largest accounting firm in the world is BDO. And BDO had revenues of $8.1 billion for the latest fiscal year. And they had about 80,000 employees globally. And that brings us to the Big Four accounting firms. And the 4th largest accounting firm is KPMG, and they had $29.75 billion for the latest fiscal year, and they had 219,000 employees globally. And as you can see, there's a huge jump from BDO to KPMG. And that's why they're called the Big Four accounting firms, because they are way, way bigger than all the other accounting firms. And it'll be interesting to see how this goes, because there's countries like South Africa that are trying to change the way the Big Four accounting firms work, and they're trying to give more work to the smaller accounting firms, because the Big Four accounting firms often get wrapped up in scandal. And a lot of people think just because there's no competition, so they can just do whatever they want and they get away with whatever they want. So moving on to the 3rd largest accounting firm in the world, and that's Ernst & Young. And Ernst & Young made $36.4 billion in their latest fiscal year, and they have 284,000 employees globally. That takes us to our 2nd largest accounting firm in the world, and that is PwC, PricewaterhouseCoopers. And they made $42.4 billion in their latest fiscal year, and they have 276,000 employees globally. The largest accounting firm in the world by revenue is Deloitte, and they have $46.2 billion earned in their latest fiscal year, and they have 312,000 employees globally. So they are also the largest accounting firm by employees as well. So what can we learn from this list? You can learn a lot of things. The more employees you have as an accounting firm, the more revenues you earn. But it's also hard to implement that, because if you want to run a large accounting firm, you have to make sure all your people are certified public accountants or the equivalent globally. And then you have to hire all those people and you have to manage them. So you can't just hire 100,000 people and make sure that they all have their CPAs or working towards their CPAs and deploy them on clients. You could, but it's hard to implement that. And that's why the Big Four accounting firms are the way they are, because they've acquired people over the year. They've had hundreds of thousands of employees for years now. And it's going to be hard for these smaller accounting firms, unless they merge or acquire each other, to get on the same level. And it's not to say it's not possible, right? Because KPMG has not been growing as big as the other accounting firms. And maybe BDO and one of the other accounting firms can merge and create a competitor to KPMG or the other accounting firms. But the way it stands right now it's not really close. The other reason why the Big Four accounting firms are so big is because they have international firms that are part of their network. And they're not like one global company. They're actually like member firms that are part of that. And the other thing is these smaller accounting firms outside the Big Four don't have a huge international presence. Now, obviously, you have to have an international presence to be on this list, but it's not as big as the Big Four accounting firms. So if the Big Four accounting firms were to lose their international counterparts, especially in Europe, because that's where a lot of their international revenue comes from, then they wouldn't be as large as they are. But the foundations of the Big Four accounting firms, a lot of them have a ton of history in Europe. And that's like a big partner to how they became so big. That took hundreds of years, right? Because a lot of these firms were founded in the 1800s in Europe. And so it would be hard for the smaller accounting firms to catch up. Now, the one way that they could catch up is technology, because technology is changing the way the world works, and being an old school accountant and having an old school name isn't as good as it used to be. So if these other firms want to catch up, another way they could do it is by establishing our name in the accounting technology field, because there's a lot more to come from there, right? So that's what I wanted to discuss today, the largest accounting firms in the world. We're probably going to be covering the largest accounting firms in the US. So make sure to subscribe to this podcast and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for listening.